let's bring in criminal defense attorney Misty Marris. Thanks for joining us. So today, opening statements. How important are these opening statements, particularly from the prosecution?
Absolutely. The opening statements are one of the most important and critical moments of the trial. And the reason is the prosecution is going to provide the jury with a roadmap of the case. They're going to point out all of the evidence that the jury is going to see along the way and why it matters relating to what this case is about. So the opening statements are really give the jury context as they watch the remaining evidence unfold, documents, information, witnesses, testimony, whatever that might be. Jurors are often relating that back to the themes that they heard during the opening. So it's really important for the prosecution, and it's equally as important for the defense to hammer some of the themes of their case home right from the beginning, so the jury is listening for that as the trial unfolds.
Okay, so we'll be hearing for the first time the prosecution laying out its roadmap, and we'll also be hearing for the first time from a witness, David Pecker. Why has he been chosen to go first?
Well, he's incredibly central to this case. So remember, this case is about falsifying documents. And in order for it to be a felony, it's falsifying documents for the purpose of attempting another crime. In this case, the other crime is alleged election violations, because these payments to Stormy Daniels, according to the prosecution, violate election finance laws because they weren't reported as election expenses. So the whole context surrounding what's going on at that time, the affair with Stormy Daniels, the catch and kill stories with David Pecker being the central person relating to that entire process, both Stormy Daniels and ultimately killing those stories, that's all going to relate back to why did Donald Trump want to kill those stories? And was it because of an impending election that he thought this would be a horrible thing for the women electorate to hear about his affair while his wife's pregnant? And so he wanted to extinguish that story. Well, the person that's going to be in the best position to talk about those motivations, which is part of the prosecution's case, is going to be David Pecker, who was involved in allegedly brokering that deal between Trump and Stormy, and also ultimately killing that story. So he's really a good way to start off for the prosecution, because it lays the foundation for a lot of the other evidence that's going to come.
Okay, so then I have to ask you this, because you're talking about falsifying business records. That is what Trump is being accused of. So we're seeing a state-level prosecution in New York for Trump allegedly falsifying business records to allegedly violate federal campaign election laws. How strong, then, is this case for the prosecution?
So the prosecution has to prove that he intended to violate another law. He doesn't actually have to have violated it. So it's an intent crime. But it doesn't mean that the crime actually came to fruition. So that's where the prosecution does have a tricky argument to make, to have the jury understand, even though there was actually no confirmed or pursued campaign finance violation of either a state or federal campaign finance law, that the attempt at covering up these charges and calling them legal expenses was in furtherance of trying to violate them. So as you can see, it is complicated, and it's something the prosecution has the burden of proof. And so it's not an easy slam dunk case by any means for the prosecutors. Now, your point about federal preemption, the defense has already tried to get this case dismissed at the state level by this judge. He said, no, the case goes forward. That issue of whether or not a federal law can serve as the basis for the second prong of this case, right? The falsifying business records in furtherance of a federal crime, that's actually going to be an appellate issue. But this whole trial is going to play out before there's any clarity on that front.
All right. Thank you for clarifying that, Misty. Misty Marris, good to have you as always. Thank you so much for your time.